ever wondered how your product or service gets priced? It arrives on your desk, it arrives on your table, it arrives at your doorstep, and it has a fixed price. Have you ever wondered what goes behind? What's the thinking? What's the psychology behind creating a price? Well, that question and the answer to many other questions are going to be answered in this podcast. Really pleased to invite Maciej Kraus, who will be sharing with us the philosophy behind pricing. And there's a lot more to it than you would expect meets the eye. We're going to be talking about dynamic pricing. We're going to be talking about value creation. We're going to be talking about the psychology behind that number when it comes to negotiating. So I'm looking forward to this great conversation. Please join us on our next episode with Maciej Kraus at Empathy at the Table. Hello and welcome to another edition of Empathy at the Table. You're in for a real ride with this one. I'm really pleased to invite our next guest, Maciej Kraus, who is a pricing specialist. I bet you've never heard of a pricing specialist before, but aside from that, he's many other things. And we're going to do a deep dive and explore into Maciej and his experience and how it can help our listeners when it comes to negotiating, when it comes to putting valuations on their products and services. So Maciej, I'd like to welcome you to Empathy at the Table.
It's a great pleasure to be here with you, Tony, and very much looking forward to our conversation.
Fantastic. So Maciej, for our listeners who maybe haven't heard of you yet, could you just share a little bit about what it is you do, your experience, and how that's related specifically to negotiation?
Yeah, so I would say I've got four hats at the same time that I wear. One is I'm a pricing guy. I've been a pricing consultant for over 20 years now, working with all sorts of different companies, from big multinationals, you know, the Microsoft, P&Gs, and those kind of guys, to the small SMEs and startups that are just starting their business journey. So this is kind of one hat. The other one is I'm an entrepreneur. So I had my own business that together with my friend, we grew it to like 20 people and sold it to PwC. So I went through the whole founder's journey from just a concept to then, you know, selling the business. So that's the second. The third one, I'm a VC investor. I started Movens Capital. We are a VC firm based in Warsaw, Poland. 50-something companies in our portfolio. Just raised our next 60 million euro fund. So that's the third hat. And the fourth one is I'm a teacher. I'm a lecturer. We met with Tony at ESA, where I have a pleasure to have my pricing session as part of the School of Founders. So those are the four hats I'm wearing. On top of that, I've got two boys, 6 and 1.
Wow. Yeah, for the listeners, Maciej and I met actually on the School of Founders program, which is a program at ESA Business School designed to help companies who are past the startup phase and looking now to scale up and having challenges with pricing. And Maciej, his class was actually one of the most popular. So he's been back. I think this was your third time coming back with us.
Fourth, but yeah,
fourth time. Yeah. So it's obviously a subject that's really important to many people when it comes to pricing. And I think about it when I was doing the research on this. I thought, well, pricing seems one of those really obvious things, right? If you're going into business, of course, you want to think about how you're going to price your product and service. We're involved in pricing all the time. We go to the shop, even if I get a coffee, right? There's a price that I pay at Starbucks versus a price that I pay at my local. Mm-hmm. My question is, why do you think that this idea of pricing is not taught across at school age, right? Why isn't it something that's embedded into what we learn growing up?
Frankly, I don't know. And I remember when I just decided to step on a pricing journey back 20 years ago, for me it was obvious to explore it because it has a huge potential. It has a huge impact on the businesses. But still, for some reason, people don't spend enough time thinking about how to price their products or services. Just to give you one stat, for the US startup founders, they spend more time on custodian supplies than on pricing. So I'm not saying that the proper selection of the coffee beans and the toilet paper are not detrimental for the success of your startup. What I'm trying to say is at least, pricing deserves equal time as the toilet paper selection.
And so when people hear you, right, you're the pricing guy. And I remember the first time we spoke, you said, for you, that's a niche in the market that you want to own, right? You want to own this, any conversation around pricing, you're the expert. Kind of, at what point did you decide that, hey, that's going to be for me, right? I want to be when it comes to pricing, I want to be involved in the conversation at all levels. Tell us about that point when you made that decision.
I think there were 2 points. One is I was lazy, and I'm lazy by nature. And I remember when I was just at my business school doing my MA degree, everyone wanted to go to banking, finance, audit, those kind of things. So I just couldn't just compete with them. So I had to be more agile. So I thought this pricing thing might be something really cool. So that was the first moment. Then there was a moment when I had the pleasure to meet Professor Hermann Simon. Professor Hermann Simon is, I would say, the founding father of pricing. And then obviously he inspired me to explore this pricing pathway. And then there was a second moment, let's say it was 10 years ago, when I finally realized I'm good at what I do. And then once there is this moment when you're good at what you do, it becomes your hobby, your passion, and you just want to explore it and go down this rabbit hole. So there were those two moments. The first one when I stepped on the pricing journey, and the second when I thought, I'm not so bad at pricing, and let's just go deeper.
So let's start maybe unpacking this box of pricing for people who just think, well, pricing is, you've got a product and you kind of just slap a number on it. Can you take us through the journey from having, a product or a service? Maybe it's different. The journey is different for a product or a service, and then it goes through maybe creation. It goes through sales, marketing, procurement, all of that, and then we slap a price on the end of it. What does that journey look like for somebody who is creating a product or a service?
Okay. So what I see is that very often people come to me and they want me to give them a number, whether $5, $3 for the product or service. But the number or the price tag is just the last stage of the pricing process. It all starts with the value. To understand, if you have a product or service, you need to understand and quantify and then explain to your potential customers what's in it for them. Why should they even care? So that's the first part. And ideally, you can quantify it in dollars that you can help them to make, or dollars you can help them to save, time saving, risk mitigation, whatever that is. Obviously, the more tangible the value is, the easier. But still, there are some value elements that are beyond just dollars and cents, like prestige, the feeling of security and all sorts of other stuff. So first, it starts with the value. When there is no value, pricing will not help you. It's difficult to price something that sucks. So I don't have a magic button that you have a shitty product and then we can price it at whatever, $1,000. So it doesn't go this way.
Yeah.
So the first part is the value. And then the second element of this journey is to decide on the pricing metric. So what is it that you want to charge your customers for? If you sell shoes, your pricing metric is a pair of shoes. You charge customers per pair of shoes. But if you sell a software or a platform or any other solution, there are so many other ways you can charge your customers for. It can be per user, it can be per usage, it can be per month, it can be per whatever credits. So all sorts of different ways. the important thing is to decide or to explore this discussion around the pricing metric earlier, because it's easier to change the price level, but it's more difficult to change the pricing metric. I will just give you an example. Imagine you're Netflix and you charge users a monthly fee with unlimited consumption. You can watch as much as you want. Imagine, and then Netflix, obviously they raise price every quarter, every half a year, and then they just play around their pricing. But they don't change the fundamental pricing metric. So it's still price per month per user. So it would be very difficult for them now, price per movie. So just selling like tickets, as we used to buy tickets at the movies, or as we were renting DVDs, we're paying per DVD that we rented. So that's why exploring this pricing metric is so important, because the problem that a lot of startups have is that the pricing metric is not aligned with how your users consume the value. I will give you an example. Imagine you're a software that facilitates expense management and reimbursement. And your pricing metric is that you just pay per one user. So one user would be an HR person who has a login and can handle all the reimbursement processes. So obviously, as the company grows and there are more employees and more of the reimbursement, it's impossible to charge the company more because of more value that you deliver. So here the fundamental problem would be that you have a wrong pricing metric. Maybe it would be better to charge per batch of receipts that we process, or per employee that has a let's say login, and that we process the employee's expenses. Hope you understand what I mean.
Yeah, and so essentially, I mean, my big takeaway is do the research on the pricing model before you actually launch the product or service.
Yeah.
And so that would, I guess, involve benchmarking, figuring out what seems to be the benchmark for the industry, and what about if you've got the customer
on this benchmarking?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
actually
sure.
benchmarking can get you to a dead end. What I mean is that pricing or your pricing metric can be your differentiating point. Let me give you an example. When Salesforce launched, one of the reasons they were so successful was because they were selling their platform as per user, rather than you have to pay $10 million for an on-prem CRM solution. So the pricing metric was their innovative element to differentiate themselves from the pack. Equally, it's with Spotify. What they did basically is that just listen to as much music as you want. You don't have to pay for the CDs or the songs as you used to do with Apple Music or just buying CDs. Another great example would be, who should we take? Let me think. Netflix, again. Instead of just charging per movie, you can go unlimited. Take cell phone operators. So T-Mobiles, Verizons, and others. They sell a total commodity. They also say the same basically shit. But because they make those pricing structures so complex, it's impossible for you to compare. So that's why your pricing metric can be your differentiating point.
So if you look at, for example, taking your analogy, if you look at airlines, they have a dynamic pricing structure that really can't be understood, right? So when you look at the pricing structure of an airline, is that based really around the value offered to the user, or what's the baseline for that?
No, the baseline for an airline is a bit different model. I don't think actually there can be so inspiration for a lot of other businesses. You can take away from an airline. Basically, an airline has a plane to fill, and then they want to charge as much per seat as it's possible. So it's called yield management. So they have 300 seats to fill from Warsaw to Munich, and how to price for each individual ticket in a way that will maximize the revenue. In a lot of businesses, they have a different business model. So you have, for instance, unlimited capacity, or you have a high variable cost. So if whatever, an airline, basically all the cost is fixed. When you're selling whatever, glass or watches or sneakers or something, you have a huge variable cost. So then obviously that has an impact on the business. And also with airlines, that is kind of a market status quo. You're not surprised that if you check the price for a ticket from Warsaw to Munich, it's whatever, 500 euros, and 15 minutes later the price changes. But you would be very surprised if the price for an iPhone would change every 15 minutes. So this is something you always have to take into account, that just, let's say, copying someone else's pricing will not get you far. I usually compare pricing to cooking. So there are some general rules how to make a pizza. But let's say the rules are more guidelines rather than a clear instruction how to do it. And everyone has to just test and check and verify what's their best way to make their pricing pizza.
So I'm going to ask you a question, and this is specifically for I'd like you to help me out, right? This is a query I've had for a long time. So I run a conference business for the last 20 years. So we organize conferences, corporate events all over the world. And when it comes to pricing, in our industry, in the hospitality industry, there doesn't seem to be any specific guideline. I mean, typically it's, there's a price for the actual service, which would be maybe a margin of 10 to 15%, whatever, between yourself and the vendor. And then there's the time that you actually put into building the plan, content creation, logistics, all that kind of stuff. And there are some companies that will absolutely upfront charge you for that. And there's other companies that won't charge you for doing that work, but it will be embedded in the actual price of the event itself. And it's really hard to be transparent with that. So I'm wondering, what's your view on a service industry like the corporate events industry? What's your view on how you should be able to price in order to maybe differentiate yourself from some of the competition?
Okay. So I think you brought an important element to pricing, which is the cost. Obviously, costs are important, and from if you're a seller or you're making something, you know the cost. You know how much it costs you to manufacture something, to deliver it, to ship it, to pack it. The important thing is that your customers, if you're a customer, you don't care about the cost. If you go to the conference, you don't care how much did they pay for the venue, for the catering, for the speakers. The only thing you care about is, this is the conference, it's going to be one day, this is the agenda, this is who's going to come, and then there is a price tag. And the question is, are you buying a ticket or not? And so again, getting back and connecting a bit the dots that we're discussing, it all starts with the value. And to understand what's the value of the conference for the users or for the attendees. And then obviously one of the ways you can approach it is you can have a different pricing tiers for different attendee groups. So for some there is more value in the conference than for the others. I'll just give you a perfect example. Would be I'm a VC, and whenever I go to a VC conference, me as a VC fund, we pay more than the startups pay. And then and it makes a lot of sense, because for a VC, there is a lot of value in a conference when I can meet potentially the best startups in the region. Whereas for the startups, they don't want to pay, and they don't have that much money to pay for the ticket and for the opportunity to meet with them. So this is the way you can think about it, to understand what are the segments of attendees that you want to sell to, and build different packages. So maybe if you want to charge me as a VC fund more, you can say that there is a package, it's gold, and I can just give me 10 names of the people you want to meet, and I will arrange meetings with them.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you've brought me to a really good point. This is where, if you like, the rubber meets the road when it comes to pricing and negotiation. So with pricing, you've said one of the important things is to understand the value to the other person, to the end user. And in negotiation, it's exactly the same. When we negotiate, we need to understand why the other person has shown up for the negotiation. What's the value they're taking away when it comes to the negotiation? And a lot of the work I do is around that, is around how do we create value, not being afraid to actually capture the value, right? To advocate for yourself. And what tends to happen, I've seen in negotiations, is we're very good at building the value. And then when it comes to putting a number on that, when it comes to talking about the numbers, we suddenly get nervous, we start haggling, and we hide behind maybe certain emotions. And I'm just wondering, what is it, do you think, that's in the psychology of us when it comes to throwing numbers, we get nervous, or we get emotive when it comes to actually throwing down numbers?
Probably there are a couple of reasons. The one obvious one is the fear of rejection. The second one would be the sunk cost fallacy. So I spent so much time and effort to build a relationship with you, to explain to you the value, to whatever, invite you to a dinner and stuff like that. And then I just don't want to risk too much that all the time and effort will be wasted. So probably those are two. The third one that I think happens quite often is that we don't believe in what we do. So I have a conversation with you. I'm trying to convince you that, yeah, my product is really cool and amazing, but I don't believe that's the case. I think, there are all the competitors out there that are better than me, faster, quicker, more agile, whatever. So I think those would be the three ones that I would consider.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point, especially the last one, not believing, because I see that in the negotiation, people getting nervous around when it comes to pricing, and typically it's the reason is, for some reason, they don't believe in the price, or they haven't managed to explain the value so much to the counterpart. So in your experience teaching pricing and negotiating, what do you think are some of the best ways to inoculate yourself from that? Should you come up with the price first? Should you leave the price to the end? Should you throw the price in the middle? When is the best time for you to have that conversation about pricing?
Well, I think you should have a conversation around pricing along the entire sales process. But the conversation should differ. So imagine I just want to buy from you. You don't have to show me the price up front in the first interaction, but you need to give me a bit of at least indication for your pricing metric. What is it that you're going to charge me for? And second, at least give me a range so I can imagine if it's a solution for me. So I can mentally tick off a box that I still want to explore. I still want to understand what is it that you do. So imagine that whatever you're selling this platform for expense reimbursement. So I would say, so our pricing model, we price per employee, and it's going to cost you less than you pay for a Slack subscription. So I can roughly just do a quick math, how much it's going to be.
Right. So you're anchoring them. You're giving an anchor. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So of course it all depends on the packages, blah 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 blah. But there is already a pricing discussion in the place. Actually, I'm not a fan of this theory that you should just first, speak about the value 90% of the time, and then at the end of the day, so it's going to cost you this much, because if like people, they have this psychological tendency. They know that let's say the axe is going to come.
Yeah.
So I don't want to engage mentally too much in what you're telling me, because I don't know if it's within my price range.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I mean, I call that negotiating with the hammer behind your back, right? So you're kind of making them feel nice, building rapport, but the hammer's still behind, behind your back. And I tend to call it out when I'm in a negotiation. If I feel that, there's a potential price issue there, I will call it out up front and say, I want to make sure we're in the right ballpark, so we don't waste your time and my time. So. Just exactly as you said, give us a range of what you have in mind, not the exact figure, but just give us a range to ensure that we're actually still in the game. And typically, I find it that lowers the anxiety around bringing up pricing.
Yeah, I have exactly the same experience. So that's why when people ask me, the question I get very often is, should I show pricing on my website? And the general answer is yes. Or at least you should give people an indication whether they should just click this contact us button and invest another 30 minutes to understand what is it that the product does.
Yeah, yeah. So you've taught at many universities, and I know, as I said, I've sat in many of your sessions. And when it comes to pricing, are there any questions that you've ever been asked by any of your participants that kind of really throw you, or is it pretty much the same type of questions?
I would say as I gave you this pizza analogy, I would say in some sense every pricing case is different somehow, and this is what makes it so interesting for me, and I never get bored. But obviously some questions, they come more often than the others. Like, for instance, the obvious one these days is, so my cost has risen 10%. What should I do? Should I raise the price, or should I keep it as it is? So those questions I get all the time. My competitors, they launched this new product. What should I do? Should I now be more price aggressive or not? A customer wants to cancel a subscription, or they want to leave us. What should we do? And on the flip side, we have this new amazing technology or a feature or something. Should we just include it in our existing product and packages, or we should just sell it additionally as an add-on? So like those questions happen very often. The important element for another important element for pricing is the psychological part. What I mean is that it's always this game that you have your customers, it's you as a supplier, and then there are competitors. So your price decisions, they impact the price decisions of your competitors, obviously. So the obvious case, Coke and Pepsi. So it's not just you being Coke and setting your price for the customers. Like the Pepsi price will be impacted by what Coke does, and vice versa. So this game is another element that you need to understand, because a lot of companies, they come to me saying, Maciej, we have this amazing strategy. We just cut our prices 20%, and we just get all the our competitors. We just all the customers will leave the competitors and come to us. Guess what? Your competitors will do exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
And nothing's going to happen. So I'm amazed how naive we are sometimes, and that we cannot draw conclusions and learn from what was the market dynamics before.
Yeah, I mean, it's like banks, I guess, the same thing, dropping interest rates, right? One drops interest rates, everyone else does. And I mean, do you think these entities talk to each other and come up with strategies together, or you think they act independently?
Of course, they let's say they do it legally.
Yeah.
Because obviously there's when you change pricing and when you do something, always consult your legal team so that it's all legit and everything is okay.
Yeah.
They do communicate. Imagine the head of HSBC would just give an interview saying our private account business is not profitable as we expected, and we'll have to do something about it. So if you know how to read between the lines, it's an obvious message to the market that we're going to raise prices. So they do talk to each other, and they talk to each other just publishing their price lists.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So obviously there is a communication going on.
Yeah. If you know how to read it, you do, but most people
Absolutely.
don't. So, Maciej, I want to bring the conversation to you as a person, so our listeners get a feel for who you are. You come across to me as a real cool character. I mean, do you get nervous when you negotiate? Or are you totally calm all the time?
I would say I think it all you always get better with practice. So I think when it comes to business negotiations, I feel more at ease and secured. But when I'm negotiating with my kids, I'm totally lost. So it all depends. And obviously, I think it also depends on what's at stake. So for business, of course, there is a lot of money at stake, and we're running a multi-million-dollar fund. But it's not that I'm, let's say, risking whatever my house, and I will not be able to afford and pay the diapers and stuff like that. So obviously, I have this kind of risks mitigated.
Yeah.
But when I'm just trying to negotiate with my kid, and I'm late for work, and he doesn't want to put on his shoes, then it's a different kind of situation.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, you've emotionally invested in that,
exactly.
right? Yeah. Let's just maybe just change tack just for the last part of this. Is everyone's talking about AI and how AI is going to be affecting the way we negotiate with each other, the way we, it comes to pricing. Everyone's talking about AI, that in the future, it won't even be human to human, right? AI will be negotiating with AI and setting prices dynamically without our intake. Firstly, what's your take on that? And then secondly, when it comes to what I like to call empathy, and empathy simply for me means just understanding or putting myself a little bit in your position and understanding what your decision-making process is and how emotions are affecting those decisions in real time. What do you think is going to happen when it's all automated when it comes to our decision-making and pricing?
I think we are still, when it comes to AI in pricing, obviously AI has a lot of applications within very specific elements or parts of the pricing process. So if you believe that you just throw all your data at ChatGPT and then they will just give you a price, I think we are far away from that. Obviously, predictions are difficult, especially when it comes to future. But I've seen those forecasts already for a couple of years, and still you just have to create your concepts and stuff. Where I think that there will be a lot of pricing work to do is how to price the AI. So you have your AI assistant, your AI chatbot, your AI module, and how do we want to price that? How do we want to include the AI element of your offering into your existing product portfolio architecture? And that's going to be super interesting and super challenging for a lot of businesses.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think this idea of what's fair, right? What's a fair price? Fair is quite an emotive word, because what's fair to you may not be fair to me. How do you deconstruct that when it comes to pricing?
Yeah. Okay. So, frankly, when people tell me that what I do is just evil because I just want to exploit the willingness to pay and charge people the maximal price they're willing to pay, and it's not fair, I think underpricing is not fair. What I mean is that imagine that I have my you run your conference, and you can charge 1,000 euro per user or per attendee. Why shouldn't you charge 1,000 euro per attendee? And then if you think and you want to spend all the proceeds and give it to charity, just do it. I think it's more fair from my fairness perspective than just doing it at cost and then not actually creating this additional value in the world. So I think it's better to charge a lot, and then if you feel like that you made too much money, just give it to a charitable cause, and that's it.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that the focus should be in adding value along the value chain.
Exactly.
It's if you take a product or a service and you're not doing anything to really add value along that process, I think that's where it might be look a little bit unfair. But if you can justify how you're adding value and the effort you're putting into adding value, I definitely agree. You're in the right place asking for market value. Maciej, this for me has been a masterclass. I really enjoyed talking to you about pricing, and probably could go on for another couple of hours. But we are coming to the end of our podcast, and I'd just like to ask you, for maybe listeners who want to find you, who are interested in what you're interested in, what is it that you're working on right now that's really exciting, and how can our listeners find you?
I would say that LinkedIn is the best destination. Just follow me or send me a friend request. I try to publish something every week with my thoughts and inspirations around pricing, and hopefully you're gonna find it useful. What I also do is I love to meet people, and whenever someone asks me, "Hey Maciej, can I get 30 minutes of your time? And there is this concept I want to explore." I have a certain time slot within a week to do those kind of things. So I'm very open to see new pricing challenges, to help people when I can. So those would be the ways. Now I'm working on my new book. I released a book end of last year, which was 18 chapters co-written by pricing experts from working within the companies: Microsoft, Unilever, DHL, Hilton Hotels, Schneider Electric, and other, just showing the pricing from the inside, and it went very popular. And now we are just working on a second edition. So there's going to be another pricing practitioners sharing their pricing wisdom. So this is what I'm currently working on.
Fantastic. Hopefully when that book comes out, we can invite you back to talk about the book.
Sure. Amazing.
Maciej, yeah, so you going to say?
No, I was just saying thanks for the invite, Tony. Always pleasure to chat with you, and very much looking forward to our next conversation.
Thank you very much for joining us on Empathy at the Table. Thank you.